shadowed corners of American criminal history lies a figure whose name still echoes with fear, curiosity, and chilling fascination: the Zodiac Killer, a name that has become synonymous with mystery, manipulation, and terror. Between the late 1960s and early 1970s, this unknown individual terrorized Northern California, leaving behind a trail of blood, cryptic letters, and a puzzle that, to this day, remains unsolved. Unlike most killers, the Zodiac did not seek anonymity. Instead, he craved attention. He wrote to newspapers, taunted the police, and threatened further violence unless his cryptic messages were published. His actions turned him into a mythic figure, not just a criminal, but a dark legend. And with each new letter, each new murder, the legend only deepened. This is the story of the Zodiac Killer: the crimes, the ciphers, the investigations, and the enduring enigma of a man who became one of America's most infamous unidentified serial murderers. The beginning of fear. The Zodiac's confirmed reign of terror began on December 20, 1968. Betty Lou Jensen and David Faraday, two high school students on their first date, were parked on a quiet lover's lane in Vallejo, California. At around 10:15 p.m., someone approached their vehicle. Minutes later, both teenagers were dead. David shot in the head at close range. Betty Lou shot 5 times in the back as she fled. There were no witnesses, no apparent motive, just death, left behind in the silence of the night. 7 months later, on July 4, 1969, Darlene Ferrin and Michael Mageau were parked in a similar location. A car pulled up beside them, then drove off, only to return minutes later. The driver stepped out and fired a 9mm pistol into the car. Darlene was killed. Michael survived. From his hospital bed, he described a stocky man, perhaps in his late 20s or early 30s, with light brown curly hair. But it wasn't enough. The killer had vanished once again. The letters begin, then came the letters. On August 1st, 1969, the Zodiac sent 3 nearly identical letters to the Vallejo Times-Herald, the San Francisco Chronicle, and the San Francisco Examiner. Each included 1/3 of a 408-symbol cryptogram. In the letters, the killer claimed responsibility for both attacks and promised more bloodshed. He demanded the newspapers publish the ciphers, or he would go on a killing spree. The ciphers were soon published, and amateur codebreakers Donald and Betty Harden cracked the 408-symbol cipher just a week later. Inside was a chilling message: "I like killing people because it is so much fun. It is more fun than killing wild game in the forest because man is the most dangerous animal of all." The letter ended with a taunt: no name, no clear identity, just the signature, a circle with a cross through it. The Zodiac, a growing body count. On September 27, 1969, the Zodiac struck again, this time at Lake Berryessa. Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard were relaxing near the shore when a man approached them wearing a hooded costume emblazoned with the now infamous crosshair symbol. He tied them up, then stabbed them repeatedly. Before leaving, he scrawled a message on their car door, noting the dates of his previous killings and the word "buy knife." Cecilia died 2 days later. Brian survived to describe the harrowing encounter, a rare, first-hand account of the killer's voice, presence, and methods. Despite this, police were again left with no viable suspect. 2 weeks later, in San Francisco's Presidio Heights neighborhood, a cab driver named Paul Stein was shot in the head at point-blank range. This time, the killer was spotted by 3 teenagers who saw him wipe down the cab and calmly walk away. They described a white male, stocky, with a crew cut. Police arrived within minutes, but due to a miscommunication, were looking for a black suspect. The Zodiac slipped through their fingers. He later mailed a piece of Paul Stein's bloody shirt to the Chronicle, confirming his role in the murder. The letter included a terrifying boast that he planned to attack a school bus, shooting the children as they came off. The ciphers and the codes. The Zodiac's communications were more than confessions. They were psychological warfare. He sent dozens of letters to the press and police, some with ciphers, others with threats, and some simply mocking the authorities. Among the most infamous was the 340-character cipher, mailed in November 1969. For decades, it remained unsolved, until December 2020, when a team of amateur cryptographers finally cracked it. The message read, "I hope you are having lots of fun in trying to catch me. I am not afraid of the gas chamber." But, as with earlier messages, the cipher revealed no name, no clear clues, just the Zodiac toying with the world. He continued writing into 1970 and beyond, claiming new victims, though none were confirmed. He signed off one letter with a tally: me equals 37, SFPD equals 0. Yet the confirmed body count attributed to him stands at 5 dead, 2 wounded. Even this number is disputed. Some investigators believe he may have been responsible for earlier or later crimes, such as the 1963 murders of Robert Domingos and Linda Edwards, or the 1966 killing of Cherry Joe Bates in Riverside, California. The Zodiac hinted at these connections in his letters, but hard evidence was always lacking. A city on edge. By 1970, the Zodiac had become more than a murderer. He was a media phenomenon. His taunts gripped the public imagination. Every new letter was dissected on television, speculated about in newspapers, and analyzed by the best codebreakers in the country. The FBI became involved. The Zodiac even began referencing pop culture, quoting from The Mikado, a 19th-century operetta, and sending bizarre greeting cards with cryptic notes. One such card, the Halloween card, arrived in October 1970, addressed to reporter Paul Avery. The card hinted at a new victim and bore the phrase, "Peekaboo, you are doomed." Alongside the card came an anonymous letter linking the Zodiac to the 1966 murder of Cherry Joe Bates. The suggestion ignited a new wave of panic and theories, though police in Riverside and San Francisco never formally connected the cases. Each letter brought new dread. And yet, after 1971, the Zodiac's correspondence became sporadic. One final confirmed letter came in 1974, signed as a friend. In it, he criticized the film The Exorcist, calling it the best satirical comedy sick that I have ever seen. It was a strange anticlimactic note. And then, silence. Suspects and theories. Over the decades, dozens of suspects have emerged. Some gained national attention, others were quietly dismissed. The most infamous among them was Arthur Lee Allen, a convicted child molester and former schoolteacher. Allen was closely scrutinized after being identified by an acquaintance and later linked circumstantially to the Zodiac through various odd coincidences. He wore a Zodiac-style watch, had access to the weapons used, and lived near the scenes of the crimes. Yet, handwriting analysis and DNA tests failed to link him definitively to the letters. Allen died in 1992, never charged. Other suspects ranged from known criminals to bizarre outsiders. Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber, was briefly investigated due to similarities in writing and ideology. Bruce Davis, a member of the Manson family, was also considered. Even famous novelist Richard Gaikowski was a target of suspicion due to his ties to San Francisco counterculture and alleged resemblance to witness descriptions. Then, in 2021, a group of independent investigators, known as the Casebreakers, claimed they had identified the Zodiac as Gary Francis Post, a deceased Air Force veteran and house painter. They pointed to photographic evidence, alleged scars that matched witness accounts, and a cipher they said revealed his name. However, law enforcement agencies have not officially recognized Post as the killer, and many experts remain skeptical of the claim. Despite the proliferation of theories, no suspect has ever been definitively linked to the Zodiac crimes by physical evidence. The legacy of the Zodiac. The Zodiac's impact on American culture is hard to overstate. He inspired novels, films, and endless speculation. David Fincher's 2007 film Zodiac brought renewed attention to the case, highlighting the obsessive nature of the investigation and the deep psychological toll it took on those who tried to solve it. The killer's unique mix of violence, mystery, and media manipulation has kept the case alive in the public consciousness for over 5 decades. The cryptic nature of his letters, the chilling calm of his threat, and his ability to vanish without a trace created a blueprint for what would become the archetype of the modern serial killer in pop culture. Yet at its core, the Zodiac case is a story of failure. Failure to protect victims. Failure to catch a man who inserted himself so brazenly into the spotlight. Failure to find closure for the families left behind. For all the headlines, theories, and cultural echoes, the most basic truth remains: we still do not know who he was. Conclusion. More than half a century has passed since the Zodiac's first known attack. His ciphers, some solved, others still unsolved, remain symbols of a puzzle that may never be completed. Investigators still revisit the case with new technologies. DNA analysis, once a dream, is now a powerful tool. But even with these advances, the identity of the Zodiac continues to elude. Perhaps he died before he could be caught. Perhaps he's still alive, having hidden behind a mask of normalcy. Or perhaps, as he once boasted, he was too clever for anyone to ever find. Whatever the truth may be, the Zodiac's shadow lingers, a reminder of how little we sometimes understand about the people who walk among us. In the end, his name remains unknown, but his symbol, his messages, and his chilling words endure. And the question still hangs in the air: who was the Zodiac Killer?